Hello, America. This is Call of Duty Goddess. Today is November the 18th, 2016. It seems that Barack Obama is concerned about fake news. He says it's a threat to our democracy. Let's check this out.
If we are not serious about facts and what's true and what's not, and particularly in an age of social media where so many people are getting their information in sound bites and snippets off their phones, if we can't discriminate between serious arguments and propaganda, then we have problems.
So I do agree with the president. I think it's very important to distinguish between fact and fiction. I have Vicky Davis here. Vicky Davis is a retired computer systems analyst and a programmer turned internet researcher and writer. As an internet researcher, she applies her systems analyst skills and focuses her research on the revolution in government from a systems perspective. She has two websites, The Technocratic Tyranny and Channeling Reality. She also writes and maintains TVOI News. So let's hear from Vicky. Vicky, you've got a beef with the Washington Post. What's up with that?
One of their reporters gave me a call and said that he was going to come out here and interview some people in Twin Falls about the refugee issue, especially in view of Donald Trump's win. Silly me, I said yes. Okay, so he came out here and he wrote an article, and I thought that the article that he wrote really is a demonstration of what Obama was talking about in terms of news that is actually propaganda and twisted facts. Well, if you twist it, it's not a fact. It's propaganda. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about because it really is kind of a hit piece on the people out here who are really just ordinary concerned citizens. And it seems in the environment in this country today, if you exercise your right to free speech and your opinion goes against the mainstream media, then you're a racist, a xenophobe, a white supremacist. The list goes on and on. Hillary Clinton had a list of adjectives to describe people who don't go along with the mainstream agenda of the destruction of the United States.
Okay, well, Vicky, why don't we get into this article? We'll go over it piece by piece, and you tell me what's up with it. We'll start with the title here. In Twin Falls, Idaho, codependency of whites and immigrants faces a test. That, to me, is very racist from the get-go, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, people on the left think in terms of colors. They don't really discuss anything in terms of the issues, in terms of the facts. It's all about color or gender or status. And if you're white, if you're not a lesbian or a gay, or if you're actually a legal American born on this soil, then you're bad just right from the get-go.
Yeah. I think that just about describes it. So let's see what he did and said. He's very descriptive. Sunrise was still almost 3 hours away. Bob Schmidt rubbed his eyes, straightened his camouflage hat, and climbed into the driver's seat of his van. He was about to begin his daily drive through this politically deep red region, picking up refugees and dropping them off at work.
Yeah, a 61-year-old man who lost his job at Glanbia a few years ago. Glanbia is a cheese factory, and so now he's driving a shuttle bus for $8 an hour. Well, in the article, it says that there is um, very low unemployment here, but it, it, if there was a shortage of workers, Bob Schmidt would not be making $8 an hour doing a job like driving a shuttle bus. So
Really
there's,
good point.
yeah,
All right, we'll continue and just jump in. Blocks away
okay,
was the auditorium during the summer. An anti-Islam activist warned the crowd that radicalism and hatred was rising throughout the world, including in Twin Falls. Nearby was the family restaurant where one night earlier a team of self-avowed defenders of freedom had reveled in Donald Trump's victory and talked about being on guard against Sharia law.
okay. Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
We know that our soldiers are fighting over in the Middle East. We know that there is a global jihad, a group called ISIS or ISIL. They call them ISIL sometimes, or they call them Daesh. They want to build an Islamic state. They consider the United States the enemy, and they'd like to kill us. And so they are trying to take over states in the Middle East, nation states over in the Middle East. And Islam is a political system. It's not really, it has a religious component to it, but it is a political system. And there's just a few of us that are saying, wait a minute, they'd like to kill us, so why are you bringing them here?
Exactly. Exactly. Let's continue. On the horizon were the county's farms and factories where employers said they would be lost without the low-wage workforce from Iraq, Afghanistan, and sub-Saharan Africa. Refugees whose best chance in the United States meant a seat in Schmidt's van and a shift that started at 6 a.m.
Yeah. Well, Idaho's been here a long time, and we've always had agriculture, and we've always had plants, potato factories, sugar factories, things like that. And you know what? We never needed anybody from Iraq, Afghanistan, or sub-Saharan Africa. We got along just fine without those people. So why are they bringing them in here? Well, I'll tell you why. It's cheap labor.
It's slavery. I mean, the way the guy even puts it, it sounds like freaking slavery. I'm
Yeah.
offended.
Well, later on in the article, he said that they're working 12 hours a day. And if these refugees that come in, they're putting them through workforce development, which means that the state is paying to, quote, train those workers at the tune of $3,000 per head. So, so they're bringing them in. We are paying to train them while they're taking jobs that there are just plenty enough American young men to be doing them.
Well, we're also paying for their flights in. And we're also paying for them for a place to live. And we're also subsidizing their food in the form of food stamps, what's it called nowadays? SNAP. So they're getting the whole 9 yards. And in the meantime, they're bowing down to a god, whatever you want to call it, that says in their book over 100 times to chop off Christians' heads and how exactly to do it.
I mean, do they think we're that stupid? Maybe some people are, but people are not that stupid to believe this story, but I do think they are that scared. They're afraid to stand up and say anything.
Yes, but I mean, see, and this is where I get people commenting sometimes on my videos. Wow, that's a really good video. Who are you going to show it to? Well, I've only spent 40 hours putting this video together and researching to put it out for you for free. So why can't you take this information that I've given you for free and stand up with me and shout the same thing? Because if people are scared that the government's going to come after them for speaking up, the more people that speak up, the more of a chance no one will be able to get locked up, because that's how a revolution is made, without picking up one gun.
You know what is amazing to me is that it's like people think they're living in a movie or something. Like they know that it's happening, but it's like it's not real or something.
Right. Well, you have these YouTubers that every Islamic attack, every terrorist attack, they say is fake. So these people that are truly dead, I know that if one of my family members were killed due to a jihadist over here, and then I were to hear someone on the internet, on YouTube, saying that my loved one was not killed through a jihadist attack, I would be so upset. I really would. I don't get it. I don't get it.
There is a lot of disinformation on the internet, and I do believe that that is intentional. Uh, I, I know it's intentional, and it's really so that it's a destabilization tactic, so that people don't know what the truth is, and they don't know where to find the truth, can't find the truth because you can't get it from the mainstream media. Um, they are just, they've become just propaganda rags, you know. You might as well have Baghdad Bob stationed at, you know, each mainstream media outlet.
Right.
So, and that's done intentionally, because when people can't sort things through and know what the truth is, they just turn it all off,
Right.
shut it out.
Right. Or you get people like you and me who just are obsessed with finding the truth.
Yeah, and that I am. I certainly am.
Shall we continue?
Okay.
All right. So is everybody ready? Schmidt said Tuesday morning, once his van was filled. Isn't that great that he's taking all these people that are getting free food, got a free ride over here, that's getting free housing, and then they're being hauled to work.
Well, don't forget they're getting free medical too.
Oh
Mental
yeah,
health. They get health
absolutely.
care. We don't. They
They
do.
do. Right. So, and you can't make this up.
You know what? This is globalization. This is the inverted reality of globalization, where under a global governance system, nation states don't matter anymore, borders don't matter anymore, because it governance occurs at the global level, right? We're just one big happy global village, just like Hillary said, you know. And so they're importing the refugees from all of these Muslim countries and giving them jobs and giving them everything. Basically, they are displacing our Native American population.
Yes, they're doing that throughout the world too, because they have to destabilize the nations where these people are coming from in order to get them to come over here. Am I right? Why are they called
Yeah.
refugees?
Yes, they are doing that to all nations in the world. They have globalization has turned every nation state against its own people.
Right, so it's globalization through destabilization.
Well, destabilization is in order to implement globalization,
That's
because
crazy.
I know they have to they want to break the concept of national identity. of what it is to be an American. They have to break that. They have to break the idea of American citizenship, break the idea of borders. I have a quote here that I want to read to everybody. Okay. This is Henry Morgenthau, and he was the Secretary of the Treasury under FDR in 1945. And the plan for globalization, for a global government, began at least this far back. It actually went farther, but when they really started working on it. But here's what he said, Treasury Secretary under FDR. We can hardly expect the nation state to make itself superfluous, at least not overnight. Rather, what we must aim for is really nothing more than caretakers of a bankrupt international machine which will have to be transformed slowly into a new one. The transition will not be dramatic, but a gradual one. People will still cling to national symbols.
Oh
Well, you
my
remember,
gosh.
we are the Americans who are clinging to our national symbols, the flag, um, the Ten Commandments, our churches, our Pledge of Allegiance, Christmas, you know, everything that was culturally American. But they're really trying to get rid of all of that so that we can have one big happy global village, just like Hillary said.
That is the first time I've ever heard that quote, and it's incredible. I mean, another way that they're making this money, and it has been proven in congressional hearings, that we are arming not only so-called Syrian rebels, but we are freedom fighters, they call them, which are none other than ISIS. But we are also arming the Mexican drug cartels in Mexico through Fast and Furious and many other things where the globalists are making money off of the heroin trade since we took over the fields in Afghanistan in 2010. We saw Geraldo Rivera in a field of poppy that our soldiers were guarding. And all of that money, the heroin trade that's getting everybody in America addicted to heroin, and the gun running that has been going on forever, for more years than I've been alive. Um, it's all connected to these globalists, and that's who's making the money off of
Yeah.
all of this.
I watched a hearing on home scam security today, and what they were talking about was homegrown Islamic terrorism, because there is a global jihad. That's what ISIS is about. And they're talking about Muslims. I'm going to say it, Muslims in this country, and they may have even been born in this country, but they get radicalized. Okay, and so when Home Scam Security talks to Congress about it, they're actually talking about Islamic terrorism. But on the ground where we live, the people that Home Scam Security is going after are Americans, actual Americans who are trying to stand up, trying to say, hey, we've got a problem out here. We are being invaded by these Muslims. They're being brought in by the boatloads as fast as they can get them in here. So while on the one hand they're saying, well, we've got Islamic terrorism, there's a global jihad, we're losing our jobs and our towns to these people, and our cultures, our American culture is being destroyed. So, how do we reconcile these two things? It's propaganda and it's fake news, and it's coming from the mainstream media.
Right, and they're the ones who get paid to do this. I don't make one earthly penny off of this.
I
I
don't make I don't make any money on this. I work on this every day from the moment I wake up until I can't keep my head up anymore. I'm at my computer, I'm reading, I'm writing. I'm doing everything I possibly can because this country is in trouble.
And you know, Vicky, I was thinking about this the other day. That's funny that you should bring this up because I was thinking about George Soros and Hillary Clinton and what they've done around the globe. And they have successfully pitted everyone on the planet just about against them, especially George Soros.
You know what George Soros does? His color revolutions, these color revolutions that he's funded all over the world, that's to take down governments.
Right?
And what they are replacing it with is a globalist management structure. Okay, where there is no loyalty to the people, there is no nation state, there is no borders. All there is a territory with people in it. And in order to break the nation state, it's important to have foreigners move in for destabilization and deculturalization.
Wow.
And that's what they are doing with the importation, with this mass importation of Muslims, what we did have, which is basically a Christian country.
Right.
So
Right.
there's nothing more destabilizing to a Christian country than having Muslims move in, right? And
Exactly.
especially because their religion is a political system.
It's a totalitarian system disguised as a religion. Yeah. And that's why the globalists are using Islam and spreading Muslims throughout the planet to destabilize all the nations of the earth. They are in effect pushing the caliphate because they are behind the caliphate. They are helping the caliphate because that will help them in their journey to globalization.
Bingo, you got it. That was a good description of it. And you know what? It really helps to separate the Democrats from the communists, the fascist communists that have infiltrated into our country and into the Democratic Party. Because the Democrat women worked for a long time, for equal rights for women. And now, if you listen to Democrat women, they're just all for this, bringing these Muslims in here. And so, what they're actually saying is, yeah, let's bring back second class status for women.
Right.
I mean, how do you, how do you reconcile that? How do Democratic women reconcile that?
You're right. Well, in my mind, they do that by their mouth goes where the money is. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
they got a wad of cash and their mouth just says where the cash goes, you know?
Uh-huh. Well, and that's pretty much everything that this country is about now. There's no such thing really as political philosophy and a belief system of that our constitutional principles were founded on. Everything is about the money, except
Absolutely.
except for the few hangers on, or what do they call us? Bitter clingers
Yeah.
that are bitterly clinging to our Constitution, our guns, and our freedom of speech.
Right. And just think about it. Our country would not be what it is right now if our system was not so fascist. Is our system is Mussolini's dream come true. It
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, shall we continue?
Sure. Yep.
So, yes, came a groan from the back. So he goes and picks up all these people that are getting a free ride, and he's making a whole $8 an hour driving them around, and they're groaning because they don't want to be a slave, I guess.
Right.
Twin Falls is now a testing ground for whether the bitter cultural divisions intensified by this year's presidential campaign can recede in favor of codependency that marks many communities with large white and immigrant populations. In this southern Idaho city of 45,000, the question surrounds a growing Muslim population. Across the country, people in meatpacking towns and agricultural areas are wondering whether their communities will hold on to a supply of Hispanic workers and other foreign laborers crucial to these industries. Again,
Right.
that sounds like slavery to me.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they can't survive without slave labor. Yeah, I don't think so. At the point when the refugee is no longer a refugee and they're off on their own, they continue to bring in more refugees. So they're just replacing our native population. And
Exactly.
they're so it's like they are feeding the employers and creating poverty with a race to the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because they keep refreshing the low wage workers with more low wage workers. So when does that stop?
Right,
When everybody is living in a mud hut in the dirt, barely subsisting. I mean, what do these people want?
right. They want to destabilize. They want to destabilize. Look what George Soros is paying all these protesters to do right now. I've read somewhere, I think Dabu or someone did a video about he pays them, I think, $15 an hour and they get health benefits and stuff.
Oh man. Yeah, and look at on the patriot side, the people that would like to keep America America. I donate my time and I spend more money than I have to spend. I've got credit card debt because I think this is so important to do. There's no help on the right. So that what that really shows you is that we are in a fascist country, in a fascist system, and the wealthy are really paying people to bring this country down.
Yes, because I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, and then people say to me, "Are you prepared?" Blah blah blah. Yeah, hopefully they'll bring all the credit card companies down so that
Yeah, yeah. Are you prepared? Yeah, sure. I have some rice and some beans.
right. I'm hoping that I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm donating every free minute that I have. Meanwhile, my family have been through stages where they think I'm going insane. Well, now with Trump, I mean, I still am not sure if he's on the up and up each day. I think he may be, but then again, I don't know. I haven't started researching his picks, but I mean, from what he was saying, it woke up a lot of my family members to the reality that what I've been saying and why I've given up my life to do what I'm doing is true, you know?
I that has happened to me too. The people that thought I was kind of out there uh, realized with Donald, he gave some great speeches, some just phenomenally great speeches, and that has helped. But we still need people to participate. Freedom is not free.
Right. And all these people, I mean, I could be I own a business and I'm trying to go out of business because I just want to do this. How am I going to survive? I am married. My husband has a job and he's working a lot more hours because I choose not to. I mean, I'm fortunate. I don't know how you survive. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Well, I have Social Security, so I'm okay, but I mean, I scrape by, but I'm not complaining. This is where I need to be. This is what I need to be doing. So
Right.
I do
Me too. Me too. And I actually enjoy it. I enjoy it, I guess.
it.
But like it's so funny like when my mom comes up to visit and I'll be telling her about something and she'll say something that it just triggers me, and I'm like, oh my God, you just connected something. And she's like, what? Or she'll be saying something, I'll be like, oh my God, and I'll start jumping up and down and going crazy. She's like, what? What did I say? You know? And I can't get it out. You know, I'm so used to showing. I'm like, I gotta show you, you know.
It gets to where it's hard to talk to regular people who are not researchers on the internet because once you get into it so deep and you realize that how much we've been lied to, how deep the lies are, and uh, things are just not the way they are presented to be by the mainstream. It gets really difficult to explain that to people.
Oh
So,
yes. Oh yes. Oh
so I
yes.
don't even try anymore. I just
Well, I still haven't given that up because I did a video, and I think I made it too long. Maybe I didn't do a good job, but I spent a heck of a lot of time on it. And I did a video that shows how that we are dealing heroin. We are the biggest drug dealers and partners with ISIS and the Mexican cartels. And I showed all mainstream media videos in it except for one. And I really tried hard because I don't know how many times I have told people face to face that our government is trafficking the cocaine and heroin in here, and we've teamed up with the cartels and ISIS, and they don't believe me. They laugh at me. Well, I think I proved it by that video. So
yeah. Well, think that speaking on the radio, that's a good way to reach people because then it's their choice to watch and listen. But to try to one-on-one, convince people in your own community, it's impossible
it is.
unless they're ready to hear it.
And I'm such a headstrong person that it upsets me when I've researched something and spent a lot of time, and I have compiled so much evidence that I know exactly what I'm talking about and I know what I'm saying, and someone will say to me, I don't know if that's true. You know, I'm basing what I just told you off of congressional testimony and congressional records and court hearings. How much more proof do you need? So you're right. Showing videos of it just, it helps me. That
Yeah. It's against the law to lie to Congress.
really, Hillary needs to hear about that. Does she know that?
No, no. More importantly, does Comey know that?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. You know that speaking of that, that's what woke up my sister. I did a video on James Comey, and he is heading up this drug enforcement thing. Him, Loretta Lynch, and the DEA guy, all three of them are involved with the cartels and the banks in one form or another, either inadvertently or overtly. And I showed in the video about Comey, and she said when she saw James Comey, because she went to this big event thing, Chasing the Dragon, they did a video, a movie, like a documentary, and she went, with her group, and James Comey and all, Loretta Lynch and all were there speaking, and she was in shock because she knows what they really are, because I've done videos on them. So crazy. So where were we? Let's see. We need to take the time to understand one another, said Schmidt, 61, paid $8 an hour by a staffing company. The hate in our country has gotten worse. You'd think that Schmidt would be a little angry.
Well, yeah, you would think so. But maybe he can't afford to be. I don't know. It's hard to say. He's kind of at the mercy of mainstream TV to give him his information, and so he's kind of living in an information bubble.
Yeah. There are many of very intelligent people who are living in that information bubble, and there is no excuse, because the information's out there.
yeah, everything I do, everything I write about is mainstream, legitimate sources. You know, I go to C-SPAN, watch hearings. I go to the Thomas, which is the Congress's website. I go to think tanks, to university websites, institutes like Brookings, you know, all credible sources. And it's all there. You just have to read it. You have to go find it. That's all. Because the mainstream media is not going to tell you about it.
Do you know the Brookings Institute was heavily funded by the Muslim Brotherhood? They get
No, I didn't.
they get almost they get either half or more than half of their funding through the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, isn't that interesting? That's
It's
nice.
freaking awesome.
Is it?
So, let's continue. The
Okay.
the
Um,
Go
okay,
ahead.
well let's skip down to this part. It's subheading Crime Energizes the Movement. This is a classic example of how the mainstream media leaves out information to make things seem different than it was. Like, for example, he says in this paragraph, one member made a presentation about government overreach. And then local resident Adrian Arp, an agronomist, stood up. Well, I I did the presentation and it wasn't about government overreach. It was about globalization and how they are taking over our country by setting up cross-jurisdictional committees where they take a slice of sovereignty from each jurisdiction that is involved in the collectivized unit. On this PowerPoint, what I was talking about was globalization and the way globalization is intended to destroy the nation state, obviously, because they want a world, a global federal system where the world organization is like our federal government, and then nation states become states under this global totalitarian system. So the way they are doing that is they are creating overlays to our existing government structures. They are getting our elected representative officials to sign contractual agreements to participate in these cross-jurisdictional organizations. Okay?
So
So
what let me interrupt you. What kind of organizations are these cross-jurisdictional organizations? Is there an example that you can give me, like a name of one of these organizations?
yes. Um, well, NAFTA is one, of course. That's NAFTA trade agreement, but there is a NAFTA commission, North American something
And
commission
the
that's over it.
TPP, is that one as well?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's a trade agreement, and there is a commission over that. It's called the Commission for Environmental Cooperation, the CEC, and they are a governing body that is composed of the highest level environmental authorities, cabinet level or equivalent, from Canada, Mexico, and the United States.
So, Vicky, have you listened to enough of Trump to see if to know in your mind whether he's going to stop this globalism since he's going to renegotiate and everything?
Well, what he said that convinced me, that sold me, is that he wants to either get out of these trade agreements or renegotiate them.
Right. And then I heard someone say that, and I think it was on his transition team or whatever, one of his advisors, say that they wanted to specifically negotiate. If it's with Africa, he wants to just negotiate with Africa. If it's with Japan, he just wants to go negotiate with Japan. And that's nationalistic, national level to national level, and that's pretty much what we want, right?
It's exactly what we want. It before about 1979. I don't know. The Kennedy round of trade was in 1962, I think. Before that, when they negotiated trade agreements, it was just about tariffs. That's all. You know, how much are you going to pay to cross the border with your product?
Okay.
Um, in 1979, they started harmonizing the laws with other countries, basically step by step, establishing a system of commercial law for a one world commercial system. Okay, now if you look at this slide that I have up there on redrawing jurisdictions, all of those zones, those regional overlays to our existing government structures, they're all economic zones. Okay, you see national borders? Okay, national borders are replaced by the Regional Economic Union, which is, of course, NAFTA.
To me, a national border is a geographic kind of thing. How is that replaced by an economic? How can you replace something that is a geographical line with an economic union?
Treason by treaty.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly what it is. And the media presents it as if it's something different, as if it's just a trade agreement, just having to do with products. Well, that's not really true. I mean, most of the agreement is about harmonization of our laws and basically eliminating our borders. In 1983, Ronald Reagan signed a treaty with Mexico. It's called the La Paz Treaty, and it created an international zone on the border, 60 miles on either side. I think it was 100 kilometers, which I guess is about 60 miles on either side. And it was supposedly for border cleanup. And the two officials that were in charge of that were the EPA administrator on our side and the equivalent position on the Mexican side. And what they allowed that entity, basically they carved out a piece of the United States on our border and created an overlay structure. And they allowed the overlay, that territory on the border to be managed by EPA officials. They allowed them to be self-funded, and they allowed them to invite in anybody that they wanted to participate in the management of the zone, including the United Nations.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah, it's the most open agreement I've ever read. When I read it, I just could not believe that attorneys for the United States would let him sign that agreement, because it was totally wide open to add whatever you want to add later on as an annex.
and to anyone getting in there and ruling over that specific area however they desired, right? Or no?
Yeah, 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 because it's under the management of the Environmental Protection Agency.
So really, is it an area where people live? Is it a populated area in America?
Oh, sure, yeah, El Paso's right there on the border.
Oh
It's
my
in the
gosh.
international zone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
So
they call it the Constitution Free Zone.
that's just what I was going to ask you. Does that go in with the Constitution free zone? So, Obama, in effect, took that Constitution free zone where bureaucrats rule and did it around the entire United States of America, right?
Well, yeah, because if you think of that zone on the border um, as covering up the border. And once you're in that zone, it's kind of like a bridge over the border. Think of it like a bridge over the border. You never cross the border. You see, because once you're in the zone on the Mexican side, you don't get out of that international zone until you're 60 miles inside the United States. So you never actually cross the border.
So that's what they're going to do all over the world is they're going to stretch that because they're slowly in increments stretching that zone like Obama did. He made it 100 miles around the whole United States. So in a few years, in a few presidencies down the road, I guess another president will make it 200 miles and then they'll just keep slowly working it.
Well, they don't actually need to do that because they did something that was really very, very clever. I don't know if you ever saw the map where Mexico had a deal with China. China was going to build deep sea ports down in the southern part of Mexico, and they were going to build a highway with inland ports throughout Mexico, going across the international zone and coming up into the United States into Kansas City, the Kansas City Smart Port. You heard of that, right?
No, not really, no.
Oh, okay. Well, here's what the deal is, and this is very clever. Under international commerce, um, the the trip is considered from the point of origin to the point of destination, and all stops at ports in between don't really count. If you're taking a load of cargo from Singapore to Oklahoma City and you dock at a port in southern Mexico and you are on an interstate type transportation system and you stop only at inland ports, aka intermodal commerce zones, under international law, you have a right to have your cargo pass across borders of nation states to areas that are landlocked.
Okay. Okay, now I've heard of that.
Yeah, that was done in 1921. I think it's called the Barcelona Declaration. Basically, what they've done, just very simply, is that they've turned our interstate highway system into shipping lanes. If you think of it like that, shipping lanes, and then the inland ports are like these gas super stations along the interstate, truck stops along the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
Those are intermodal commerce zones or inland ports.
Oh, wow.
So they turned our country into a land bridge between two bodies of water, basically. I did a report on that, and it's pretty extensive research went into that.
I don't understand these systems at all. I'm clueless. So let's get back to the article. Vicky, where did you want to start at back here?
The next line down here where he says Davis, the retiree, said she once earned 125,000 in the computer industry in Manhattan and lost her job because of outsourcing and a visa program that paved the way for foreigners. That's absolutely false. I didn't say that. What I said was that the H-1B visa program destroyed the industry, the job market for Americans. And I left Manhattan in '95, so they hadn't even started that too much at that point. So he just, I don't know where he got that. He just made it up, I guess. The anti-immigration sentiment in Twin Falls began to take off in April of 2015 when the CSI director erroneously said Twin Falls was set to receive Syrians. Well, he said the anti-immigration sentiment began to take off in April. I think it actually started before that.
And
I think,
really, though, if you think about it, Vicky, that's opinion. he's expressing an opinion.
Well, yes, it is. He is expressing an opinion.
And that's what propaganda is. That's what Obama described as is opinion mixed with half truths. So is there anything else that you think that you should add to this, Vicky, to get the truth out instead of these lies?
Just the fact that I will write an article about this, and I will highlight the parts that actually it'd be easier to highlight the few things that he got right. But this Washington Post article, but it is classic propaganda up to and including the picture of me that is on there. That photographer took about 20 pictures and she picked, if not the worst picture, then damn close to it, because the sun was in my eyes, the wind was blowing my hair back, and she picked the worst picture to publish. The whole thing is propaganda. Classic. Absolutely classic.
Isn't that the way it goes?
Hmm. So, if, Obama is right in what he's saying, he's just wrong in who he's pointing the finger at. It's not the alternative media that's lying, it's the mainstream media, and they have been doing it for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and it's scared the crap out of them now because they've noticed that people are agreeing with Trump as they're saying, no, he's crazy, he's lying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's probably why Chico didn't want to mention the subject that I gave my little presentation on. It's 35 minutes on globalization, and I talked about regionalism, privatization, and treason by contract, which is what we have. And what they're doing is they're redrawing jurisdictional boundaries, and they're putting uh, basically Soviets over the top of as regional governing structures. A lot of money, a lot of federal money flows into the county level, and that buys off our public officials. Okay. And the privatization of government services has made it real easy to do favors for politicians, by creating jobs for their wife and children and husband and family members, to put them into business doing some social job and or so social function. And so that's what I was talking about. And so I'm sure he really didn't want to mention that because they would rather try to paint me as some kind of sovereign citizen or something talking about government overreach. Well, no, that's not it. It's globalization.
Right. Well, I don't know, Vicky. I think I would like to see this presentation that you do on globalization. If you'd be willing, maybe we could do a live stream. I think it'd be great because you are so knowledgeable on the functionality and the setup of the globalization process. I think it would be great to do a live stream with you and maybe have some interactive chatting here as you do it. Would
Sure.
you be willing?
Sure. Yep, we can do that.
Oh, that's great.
I have a good start on this presentation. I don't have everything in here because I only had 35 minutes, but I can add enough to it to give you a good idea of how the shadow government basically operates.
Oh, that would be wonderful. We could show how the shadow government operates, and I'm sure you have every last detail down because just to talk to you about it, you are so knowledgeable and you have enlightened me over the period that we've been friends. Well, we'll close this out and end this up. Is there anything else you want to say before we head on out of here?
I would just like to tell people that we really are losing our country. It is a complex situation that's going on, for sure. But, if you just keep your compass headed at that American flag and remember what it is to be an American, we'll be all right, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. Stand up and help because we need you. Let's see, there's something I used to type when I was learning how to type is now's the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. And it really is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vicky. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye. This is Call of Duty Goddess signing off, and as always, I've got your six.